Commission for Africa President. Maybe, let me just put this one. Okay. So maybe just 49 seconds to just talk about myself. So I'm a Zimbabwean, born and bred at the rural areas. Actually used to be the second poorest district in Zimbabwe. So many challenges that we grew up in, and by God's grace I managed to get to university. And one thing that came to my mind is what can I do to help my community so that the kids of today will not go through what we're going through. We lacked a few things, not because we did not have anything, but there was quite a lot of produce that was there, including honey, but there wasn't a consistent or reliable market. And I decided to come up with a project that would create a market for the raw produce, and I started a company called Organo 7. It is through this company, actually major in honey processing. You can actually process 2 tons per day of raw honey, and we do beekeeping training and consultants. It was through this company or the effort that I was doing that I was my efforts were recognized at regional level, and in 2015 I was approached to say, your vision, your passion, I think you're the right person that can represent the African continent on the global organization called Apicultural. I will need to explain what Apicultural is. So just like aquaponics, Apicultural, these are 2 words that are joined. Apis, that's the scientific name for bees. Mondia, I think is the Spanish term referring to globe. So Apicultural is a global bee organization, and the full name is actually International Federation of Beekeepers Associations. This is an organization or a federation that has been formed in 1893, so we can believe the kind of information that is available at an institutional level. And it's run by 15 executive council members. Those are the president, vice president, secretary general, 7 scientific commissions, and 5 regional commissions. What I just want to indicate, because it's very important, is that until the 2000 thereabout, Apicultural, being a global organization, had kind of a skewed representation, if you can say so, because it is a member-driven organization. So majority of the members are from Europe and lately America. We had a scenario where we did not have any representation from the developing continents. That resulted in a skewed kind of delivery of whatever that was being discussed at a global level, where continents like Africa were being represented by non-Africans, articulating the challenges that Africa is going through, or an African child is going through, and what African beekeeping is. And some stakeholders then say, no, I think if Apicultural is a global organization, we need to have even the developing continents have a voice or a representative in the executive council. This is when the council was then expanded to include 5 regional commissions, that is Africa, Oceania, Asia, Europe, and Americas. And I'm the second president, because the first one started in 2011, and he is from Ethiopia. We need to look at what is out, trying to make it very short and maybe precise. If we were to look at the outlook of African beekeeping, I would want to acknowledge what the reality that was shared by the Council on Foreign Relations, that the future is African. And I understand this was actually driven from the demographic point of view, the number of people in a continent. By 2050, Africa is going to have its population doubling. But what I'm going to share with you is that it's not only in terms of population, but even in agriculture, Africa is actually the future. Why do we say so? The whole continent, the whole world is going to come to Africa in the next 5 to 10 years for two things. That's it's high quality honey and beeswax. Believe me, we have the best honey that can be produced anyway because of the way we're producing our honey with less residue, so that's one thing that I can share. Actually, the most resilient bee species, they are not susceptible to a lot of diseases. Put our bees or bee species in a scenario where we have got varroa, they can still produce without adversely being affected, which is not the case with other bee subspecies. We have got weather conditions that promote or that allows us to do beekeeping throughout the year. In other continents or in other countries, the window to do beekeeping is very limited because of adverse weather conditions. If you're looking at even the natural forage for the bees, that is our natural forest and so forth. We've got abundant natural forests that provide the bees with a natural diet that really does not affect adversely the immune system or the health of our bees. And we need to understand why are we so crazy about beekeeping, especially from an African point of view. If we were to look at what it is about beekeeping, this is a low-cost capital project. I'm sure there are some that in that category, but beekeeping ranks as one of the project that is a low-cost capital project because of the hypes of the technology that is required for one to do beekeeping. Even the accessories, once you buy, you need to spend on accessories every day. And one thing that is very interesting is that is suitable even for non-arable land. I know that we have got an issue with land. We need suitable land to do our projects, but with beekeeping, even non-arable land is perfect for an apiary. I'll give a very good example. People think that mountains or your valleys or your hills are not areas that you can do a viable business. These are perfect sites where you can put your apiaries because it will not affect anything. And if we're to look at the skills that are needed, you don't need to go to school for you to actually start beekeeping. You can learn beekeeping on the go. What does that mean? If you're looking at the demographics of especially the children in the rural areas, some drop out from school because of some reasons. These can actually be capacitated to start beekeeping without having to spend a lot of money to put them through the college for them to earn NSQ, for them to earn a living. There are low overheads. This is the reality that a lot of people are not, are made not to appreciate. Beekeeping does not have a lot of overheads compared to other projects. I can give an example of if you're doing poultry. Every time when you are through with the first cycle, you need to buy the chickens, you need to buy feeds, you need to buy even treatment. But for bees, no, you don't. Once we have your hive colonized, you actually you're confident that that hive is going to produce another set of stock. And you are not going to pay for any medication. This is what we are saying from Africa region. We don't treat our bees because that will then introduce adulteration to the honey. We don't feed our bees except to supplement, meaning that we reduce the overheads that are required for you to run a business. There's minimal labor. Minimal labor. By the way, why is it minimal? Because it is the bees that will be working, it's not you who will be working. So you can actually do other things while these bees are working for you. And guess what? Bees are very faithful. They don't steal from you. One of the biggest challenges that we have, it is actually us who will be stealing the food because they are storing for the time when there is no, what is called death period. And they're faithful. As long as we treat them nicely, we know that we've got a labor force that does not even go on strike. And tell me about projects, no matter how profitable they can be, I would want to see if we've got a number of projects that are environmentally friendly than beekeeping and still profitable. And there is a red market.
What does it take for someone to start beekeeping? Anybody can start beekeeping, be it young, be it old, educated or uneducated, employed or unemployed. What does it take? One needs to have the interest, which obviously can also be said to be passion and commitment. What is it that one loses sleep about? If it is to do with beekeeping, then this is what is needed. You don't need a lot of money, but you just need to have the interest. If the interest is generated, then you look for information. I would want to thank you for mentioning the deficit that we have about information. Africa is rich with information. Unfortunately, the information is not documented. If you Google about beekeeping, what you get is European beekeeping systems, American beekeeping systems. It does not mean that Africa, there is no beekeeping that has been happening. In fact, if you were to look at history, part of the artifacts that were found in the tombs of the pharaohs were actually, honey that was processed, and that was actually being used for preservation and so forth. The Bushman paintings in Southern Africa with paintings that show some level of beekeeping that was actually happening at that level. In East Africa, I think my sister would agree with me that we even have communities that almost entirely live on honey as their diet. You talk about the Batwa communities in Uganda. You talk about the pygmy groups in DRC, right? What information do we have? You need to have correct information, right? When you have the correct information, then you also even understand that land, especially here in South Africa. I had one guy who gave me a lift, a taxi. I was coming from the airport, and I was asking, so what's happening? I'm waiting for government to give me a land. I was saying, what government is supposed to give? No, I've got land, but I want about 300,000 rands, for me to start. And I said, but so what is there? No, there is nothing. So it's like what is happening across, where you have, instead of growing something, we've got grass, right? And I was saying, but why can't we start beekeeping? So, I don't have the information and blah, but it's got land, more than 100 hectares. So land is there. It can be communal, it can be farm, it can be leased land. So we cannot have an African child failing to do beekeeping because of land. You don't need to own land for you to be able to do beekeeping. As long as you've got land, right, you can do beekeeping. And maybe as we are progressing, you understand what I mean. You need bees. And if I can tell you, we've got large, like I've said, the largest world swarms on earth. When we start beekeeping, the bees will come. And there are also ways of actually increasing or multiplying the bees without getting into genetic manipulation of the bees. Forage. These are the natural, whatever plant that is available, be it crop, be it trees, or as long as that green thing or that plant flowers, it is forage for the bees. And if there are not many, you can actually supplement by planting trees that are bee friendly. Not only plants, but even the crops that you're growing. You can also grow crops that are high in nectar content and pollen. You also earn income from there, while if you're providing forage for your bees. Water. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we don't need to have a vow dam for you to start beekeeping, because bees do not require huge water bodies. You can even supplement by putting just in small containers for your bees to have access to the water. Now, this is the big one. We cannot run away from this animal called the bee, because more than a third of the food that we eat has got the footprint of the bee through a honeybee pollination. In fact, when you have honeybees, when you're doing your farming, the quality of your produce is enhanced and the quantity is also increased. This has been proven, and this is a reality. Here in South Africa, pollination services is a multi-million rand business. I don't know if South Africans, you are aware. I want someone who would want to tell me that, are you aware that honeybee pollination is a multi-million business annually?
I know the shortage of hives.
You know the shortage of hives. Do you know that one hive you actually earn in a cycle of about 21 days, 980 rands? Food for thought. Why? Because the commercial farmers that are growing crops, be it avocados, be it macadamia, be it sunflower, cannot afford not to pay for a beekeeper to bring a hive for his crop to be. So when you're growing flowers, sunflowers, cashews, apples, avocados, watermelons, the list is endless. Macadamia, you need to have bees. So, like she said, there is a massive opportunity that is there. Maybe let me touch a little bit because this is really something that is very sensitive. There is shortage of hives for pollination, right? Maybe there's a requirement, you need to have hives and so forth. But why can't we, from a community point of view, why can't we bring our youngsters, right? The small scale, black beekeepers or families to start beekeeping. You have got 10, you've got 20, you've got 5, and then you come together and then you are able to supply the hives that are needed based on the threshold. In fact, if we were to look at longevity, wellness, the future is actually in the hive products. I don't know if you are aware. We have got cosmetics that are being produced that have got honey, that have got propolis, that have got pollen, that have got royal jelly. It is because of the medicinal properties that we find in those products, including anti-aging. So you're talking about doing away with anti-aging. Of course, there are already products made from hive products that actually enhances one's aging process, right? Or like she was saying, in aging gracefully, right? You've got honey wine. I'll come on to the issue of the honey wine shortly. I spoke about propolis. These are high-value medicinal, products that we are yet to discover. And these can be opportunities that can be given to youngsters to be able to investigate and invest in such opportunities to create employment. By the way, there's actually a lady called Metsana. I went with her as part of Northwest province to Canada, where she was exhibiting. Actually, she had a big suitcase of these products. The third day they were finished, she actually said, but when I did it, you're unfair. You should have told me this thing on demand. I should have brought two bags. Now, if we're talking about wellness, human wellness, this is where you need to be running to. You can use honey. Now, doctors are actually preferring to use honey for dressing of wounds because they heal faster than your betadine. Even the stubborn wounds, like the one for diabetes, there are research, there are actually cases that have been done, proven, right? Bee venom, pollen capsules being used as supplements, right? Cancer treatment. Oh, by the way, there's some unproven, let me say, from a scientific point of view, because people always want to say, bring the evidence on the fore. When you're stung by a bee, that season, malaria will not visit you. Because bee venom is highly medicinal, it actually boosts your immune system. Now there are equipment that are used to harness the bee venom so that you're able to. Some are even visiting, especially celebrities, visiting apiaries so that they can get a stick for them to have their immunity boosted. It also helps, the bee venom actually helps even the quality of your skin. It improves your skin. Now I want to challenge us here.
We have got a term that is called honeymoon. Can someone tell me what honeymoon or where honeymoon came from? Is there anybody who can tell me the origin of honeymoon? Honey, of course. All right? Moon, that's a month. Eh? So this traditionally, I think is saying in Europe, right, or in Britain, there was this culture where newlyweds would actually be given a gift of a honey wine called mead to use or to drink the first month of their marriage. But I can tell you, in East Africa, it is a custom where when you get married, there must be, when there's marriage ceremony, there must be honey wine, right? Sorry. Part of bride price. That is part of the customs within Africa. But when you read about the issue of honeymoon, we talk about it originating from Britain. Now, what we need to do, and why we're talking about this, especially from a regional commission point of view, we want to build a future story that supersedes the story that has been put across, especially about Africa, which has been a continent associated with poverty, hunger, hopelessness. But is that true? We need to appreciate what we have for us to change that narrative. We are shunning the product that we actually have, preferring the ones that are coming from outside, right? And yet, the honey that we are producing is loaded with medicinal properties. We prefer honey that is actually important. We need to revise our curriculum. I need to be quick. We need to revise our curriculum so that we replace theory with life skills. Because the jobs are going to, you're talking about artificial intelligence. All the jobs, majority of the jobs are actually going to the machines. So what will we be left with for an African child? We need to skill our children with work with that which they can use their hands for them to earn a living. The young people should be inducted into the beekeeping. We have families that have got hives that have been passed on from one generation to another. But we need to open the eyes to say, no, instead of looking at it as something that is passed on, you need to actually look at it from a business point of view, that you can actually scale up and be able to earn a living from beekeeping. We need to start beekeeping in schools initiatives where we teach our young kids. In South Africa, I would want to challenge those that are here. How many black entomologists do we have? Black South African entomologists. There may be very few. And that is the challenge that we need to address. These are some of the specialist skills or careers that are hidden from a lot of us. And we need to start talking about that. When you introduce beekeeping in schools, they start appreciating the role of bees to our lives and even the environment and even career opportunities. The solution as Africa is to collaborate. We need to collaborate and be able to testify, share what Africa has. I would only touch on one aspect. We need to have our African honey characterized. When I'm talking about characterization of honey, we want to see the medicinal properties, scientifically prove the medicinal properties in our honey. Doctor was talking about, herbs in Africa, right? That were being used by generations that passed by. These are the same herbs from where our bees are taking, nectar and pollen. Do you think that honey does not have those embedded properties? We need to investigate and be able to prove so that we can sell the value in our honey. And definitely, we're looking at a scenario where we need collaborations that are results-oriented so that we can have legacy projects. And I hope and pray that this conference would have a project that can be pointed to This was born out of this conference, so that we don't have conferences that are just talk shows. Now, yes, Africa is blessed, but we need to accept that potential that Africa has will remain potential until we stand up and start taking action. Major problem that we have, the major one is actually lack of funding. If you look at countries that are funding the beekeeping sector, they are doing very well. Ethiopia is the highest exporter of honey in Africa, followed by Tanzania, the second highest producer of honey in Africa. Lack of awareness on the importance of honey in our wellness. Stakeholder fragmentation, and the rest I will not mention, or I will not go into details. Right? Current honey production. Do you know that Africa, with its abundant resources, we are only producing 9% of the global honey that is actually produced. In fact, Africa is producing a third of the honey it is consuming. Where is the other honey coming from? We are importing it. And if we are importing honey, what are we doing? We are actually exporting jobs. And yet, this is something that can be done even at a village level and be able to create employment for our people. We are crying that our youths do not have employment, and yet we are subcontracting that business. Can we talk about the future without bees? UN declared 20 May as World Bee Day in recognition of the role it plays in the lives of us as human beings and the environment. We need to protect the environment now if we want to actually secure the future. And the best way to actually protect our environment at a profit is doing beekeeping. And someone actually said, we're talking about longevity. All the efforts that the scientists are making would come to nothing if we neglect our environment, which is the natural habitat for our bees. If we don't have bees, men can only live for not more than 4 years. So whatever efforts that are being made will actually go to waste. Food for thought. If Africa is to be developed in a sustainable manner by exploiting its natural environment, we need to stop importation of bee species from other continents. Because we've got the best, and those ones that we would want to import, there are challenges that are actually happening. Colonies collapsing. Up to 50% per annum, while these ours are naturally growing. So why would we want to import bees from somewhere when we actually have the ones that are most resilient? We need to stop importing basic beekeeping equipment. There are some countries that are importing hives from China. Can you believe it? Well, at least we have youths that are not employed, families that are dependent on government support. When they've got 2 heads, 2 eyes, we need to stop export. Africa must stop exporting honey. Because if we're exporting honey the way we are doing now, we are being very, very true to the statements that are being made. We want to do beekeeping to eradicate extreme poverty. But is the quality of our honey we are producing supposed to be talking about poverty eradication? Because if you're talking about poverty eradication, you accept whatever price is given. Or so long as I've got charity to buy a meal for my kids tonight. We need to start exporting the value in our honey. That will be wealth creation. Let me tell you what happened in New Zealand. They did invest in research on their honey. That is what then came up to what we know now as Manuka honey. One of the most expensive honeys in the world. Why? Because they are not selling the honey, they are selling the value in the honey. And I can bet the African honey is more loaded than Manuka honey. Now, in conclusion, I would want to advise everyone here that it has been proven, and Apicultural has actually published a book on beekeeping meeting most of the sustainable development goals. Talk of no poverty, hunger, good health, and well-being, quality education, gender equality, all those, if you were to zero in, beekeeping can actually help meet those SDGs without spending a lot of money. And I rest my case.